Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Well, today's phrase is to waltz off, and it's when someone leaves either unexpectedly, casually, or without permission. And we use it a lot during reported speech. So we don't say it about ourselves. We talk about other people in the way that they've left. Now, you know, a waltz is like a dance, isn't it? It's very graceful in the way it's performed. I was taught to dance at school. I don't know why. I mean, I've never met a British person who can actually dance, but we were taught anyway. So this phrase, to waltz off, is to talk about the way in which someone left. And it's usually used quite sarcastically to talk about how they left without permission. So we're going to go through a few examples, but let me just explain something that happened to me yesterday. So I went into a restaurant. It was a really small place. I'm sitting there, and I took my coat off and I put it over the back of my chair. Now, my wallet was in it, okay, so I was very well aware of who was around me. And next thing I know, the waitress, she comes over. I don't know where she was from, but she wasn't British. So she comes over and she says something about moving my coat to the coat stand in the corner. Next thing you know, she lifts my coat and she waltzes off with it. And I said, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I have to move your coat. It's in the way." I said, "Okay, well, bring it back here for a second because I just need to take my wallet from it." So I took my wallet out and then she waltzed off with my coat. There's one example of how you could use waltz off. It's when someone does something which you don't like. It's done in a way that you don't particularly like, okay? So we'll go through some examples. Let's see now. After the meeting, John just waltzed off with my presentation. And then the next day, I heard that he was presenting it to the manager. Yeah, that's fairly common. Actually, last week, a friend of mine came to visit, and she was saying that she was looking to buy a copy of the book Wuthering Heights. Now, it's one of my favorite books. I have it here. And I said, "Oh, Wuthering Heights, I have that." But she thought that I was giving it to her. And next thing you know, at the end of our meeting, she got up, she put her coat on, and she just waltzed off with my book. And we got to the door, and I said, do you want to borrow my book then, do you? And she said, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were giving it to me." I said, "Well, you can borrow it for a few days if you want. I'm not reading it at the moment." And she said, "Oh, okay." And she was quite taken aback that I had challenged her about it. Yeah, that's another example of waltzing off. So you can see how it's quite sarcastic. It was 5 o'clock and John just got up from his desk and waltzed off home. And we're all sitting there thinking, what? John's left. We're all supposed to be here until we finish our work. I can't believe he just got up and waltzed off. If you want to make it more dramatic, you can talk about someone waltzing off into the sunset if you don't know where they're going. So, for example, if you're talking about a person leaving a shop and going back into the crowd, you can make it quite dramatic by saying, "And then the person just waltzed off into the sunset," without even realizing what they'd done. after winning the award, she waltzed off as if it was no big deal. That's a nice one. Yeah, to waltz off. Actually, in our newspapers today, they were carrying a story about an American lady, and she was saying that one of the biggest differences between American pubs and British pubs is that in American bars, you can give them your bank card and you can say, okay, just keep it and I'll pay for everything together at the end of the night. It's called setting up a tab. They used to do that here as well, setting up a tab, but that's all stopped now. And she said you would give your card to the barman and he would basically walk away with it. I mean, I can't imagine giving my bank card to a barman and watching him waltz off with it. Oh no. Here, we are taught that you never ever let your bank card out of your sight. Supermarket, shop, anywhere you go, don't ever let your bank card out of your sight. If you see them walking off with it or even putting it under the counter, tell them, I want to see it. Bring the machine to me. And if they do walk off with it, follow them. Walk up the other side of the bar with them to see what they're doing with your card. I mean, probably they're just taking it to the card machine that you have to follow them and pay for it somewhere else. But actually, the rule is the card should never leave your hands. So you shouldn't ever have to hand your card to anybody anyway. So that's good to know if you're in the UK. But, apparently in America, you just give it to the barman and he goes off. Oh, I can't imagine watching anybody waltzing off with my bank cards. Oh, no. Right. A few more examples. In the middle of a conversation, she just got up and waltzed off. Yeah, that's a very rude thing that's happened to me before. I was in the supermarket trying to buy tomatoes, and the very large lady in front of me, she just waltzed off with the last pack. Yeah, so there we are, to waltz off. Very common, that's very common. It's a very nice way of telling a story, if you're waltzing off. Getting back to this American lady, she was saying the differences between British and American behaviors in bars. She goes on to say that in America, it's perfectly okay to go to a bar alone, and then you leave with some feeling of respect because people have spoken to you, you've socialized, and you make new friends. But actually, in British culture, you go to the pub to get drunk. You don't go there to talk to people. You certainly don't go there to socialize, although it's better to go to a pub with other people than going alone. And you don't get outside of your friendship group. So if you go to a pub with a bunch of the boys or a bunch of girls, you wouldn't be talking to other people in the bar unless it's friends of friends that they know in a small place, for example. In America, apparently you go to a bar and very quickly you just make friends. That's really not British, I think. Very not British. So, yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. Okay, so that's waltzing off, and that's also a little bit about our behavior in bars. It's very hard for British people to socialize. Alcohol is our natural lubricant for socializing. In the north, it's worse. I think in the north, people aren't able to manage their feelings well without drinking. In the south, people often have other things to do because cities in the south of the UK are often richer, so there's clubs, societies, other things to do. But at the end of the day, a lot of things come back to focusing on alcohol. So if you don't drink, it's very, very difficult. And that's one of the things I like about Americans. They are much more friendly, more open than we are, I think. We have a certain conservative pride about us, which often is not received well because it makes us look kind of cold. So anyway, just before we finish, a few others. Yeah, my cat, he took his food and then just waltzed off and ignored me. After dropping the big announcement that the UK is bankrupt, the Prime Minister just waltzed off and said he was going to quit. Well, hopefully that'll never happen. Yeah, the guy on the bus, he took my wallet, then just waltzed off into the sunset. There we are, to waltz off. Well, that's it from me today. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's catch up again soon. I'll be back tomorrow with another podcast. Hopefully, I'll manage to be outside because we have a terrible storm today, Storm Isha. So hopefully that'll be passing by. Right, see you all. Bye.